Hey, what is up guys? So a lot of players wanted me to make a video and talk about net decking, meaning that you look at someone else's deck profile and you take it card for card, or sometimes you might swap out like one card in the extra deck. You might not own one card, so you just swap it out or something like that. But anyways, I want to get out of the way that I don't necessarily think net decking is a bad thing, because there's players that really don't know anything about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, and especially the higher tier decks. There's a way for them to actually look at a deck and take it and use it as a reference guide. Now, a lot of you guys know that when I usually make decks, sometimes there's not a deck profile for that deck because it's not even out in the TCG, and it might not even be out in the OCG. It's just something that we have on DevPro or Dueling Network to actually make a deck, or you can even proxy the card. Write down the effect on a piece of paper, slip it over a card, and then start playtesting with some of your friends and to see how the deck does before you actually build it in real life. Or maybe you won't even decide to play it online because it's so bad. But yeah, it gives you a way to understand how the deck plays, because without a reference or playing against someone that's playing that deck, you might not know how the deck plays at all. And I think that net decking is fine if you just want to check out the deck, or if you want to actually build the deck yourself and use it card for card. There are players back in the plant days, there's people copying Billy Break's deck pretty much card for card, and it didn't matter who came up on top, Billy Break, and that's simply because he knew his deck really well. One thing I do also want to mention, that sometimes just because that person is doing really good with their deck might not mean that you know exactly how to use that specific card. You might not know when to use enemy controller and make it game with plants. You might not know when to use 1-for-1 dandelion, even though it's pretty simple. But there's always players with different levels of skill jumping into the game. I mean, obviously with me, when I build a deck, I don't even bother looking up any deck profiles. If you guys have seen my Mermail deck back in the day, you guys will understand what I'm talking about. My Mermail deck back in the day had Dark Armed, it had Tour Guides, well, Tour Guide goes and everything, and it had BLS, because first turn all the time I would go ahead and make a first turn Magical Android. That was the card I used to go for all the time, and occasionally you'd make Catastor, but I just loved going for first turn Android, and I was like, it's cool, I gain 600 life, I have BLS plays, because it's really easy to get a light in the grave, because Tour Guide also gets you Giga Brilliant, gets you that Chronomaly card if you really happen to not own Giga Brilliant, because at a time it didn't actually have a reprint. But yeah, my Mermail deck was really awful back in the day, and that's because after playtesting, I've realized that this card doesn't exactly work in the deck. Now before, I thought Dark Arm was actually not that bad though. Legitimately, Tour Guides and Dark Arms were not, well, I wish you could play multiple Dark Arm, but yeah, the whole Tour Guide and Dark Arm was not bad because I made my deck a little bit different. I mean, I made deck Trigodias, so I had a decent amount of Dark counts, and Tour Guide at one point was at 3. I don't think Mermails were out when Tour Guide was at 3, but yeah, you still had Sangan though. I know that card was legal, I believe. Because Tour Guide Sangan was it was too good, and you could search out for any of the Atlanteans, and then Megalo was game, right? But I do also want to mention that just because you copy a deck doesn't mean that it's going to do that well, because that other player, like I mentioned before, could just know the deck a little bit better than you. But the main idea with this is just to have fun and experiment with things, because if you just copy someone else's deck, you won't add your insight and your thoughts and your tech into the game, and you might discover a really cool combo with 2 cards. As you guys know, I love seeing these awkward decks, these really random combos in Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think that is really fun. I love seeing these other alternate win conditions, or like I just uploaded that deck where it discards, well, it doesn't discard, it sends all cards from your opponent's hand back into their deck and they draw nothing, and that's just like really cool. And I just like these strange things that don't normally happen in Yu-Gi-Oh, and just because someone tells you that you net decked a deck doesn't mean that you have to not play that deck. You can definitely play the deck and you can still win, because what it comes down to is who gets the win if you're playing competitively. If you're just playing for fun, then yeah, I mean, if you have fun, that's the most important thing if you want to have fun. But like I said, it's always good to try new things. That's what I really recommend you guys to do in Yu-Gi-Oh, is to try new things. I try new things all the time. Sometimes they are completely fail, but that's just part of the learning process. But if you guys don't like to play awful decks, you guys only want to play really high tier decks, that's totally cool too. I mean, it's part of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh. There's the competitive side, and there's the more casual and fun side. So I like to do both. I just like to try everything and see what is good. But I do also want to mention, if you're playing a net deck, like a top tier deck, a lot of players that are good will actually expect you to, you know, use this card at a certain time, because they'll know, like, okay, that face down is probably Treacherous Trap Hole, because that's the only trap card that you know, top YCS deck played. And so, you know, it's kind of a disadvantage in one sense, but it is an advantage because it's, you know, it's been play tested over and over to the point where the deck is really consistent, if that makes sense to you guys. But like I said, overall, just have fun with Yu-Gi-Oh! That's the main purpose of this game, because there's a lot of times where, you know, this game is, you know, solely based off of, you know, the hands that you're given. Sometimes bad hands happen, your opponent gets really lucky with some type of combo. It's part of Yu-Gi-Oh! But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Asian Eyes signing out.